Thanks for joining me. This is Spotlight on Spirit, where we talk about all things religious, faith, and spiritual oriented. We are hosted by the Minnesota Department of American Legion on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for joining us. Today we have the creator of Gateway Meadows Equine-Assisted Services that is in what city is it
Dayton,
out of?
Minnesota.
Which one?
Dayton, Minnesota.
Dayton, Minnesota. We've got the creator, Kathy Friedrich, which she's also a veteran. And so I look forward to hearing more about Gateway Meadows, what you do, maybe a little bit about how the thought started to do this, because it's a little bit different, isn't it?
Mhm.
And so thanks for being here, Kathy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Kelley. And, you know, I mean, first of all, this is great that it's actually a faith based podcast because I am doing work that is not, we don't lead with our faith. And
Mm.
the more I have done this work with Gateway Meadows Equine-Assisted Services, the more I want to talk about my faith because every step that we take in this
Uh-huh.
organization has been led by God, and I'm just trusting more and more. So it'll be fun to feel like I can speak about that in this podcast.
Oh, yeah,
But
it's totally free.
so I think you said, how did I get into
Yeah.
this?
How did the thought come to you to start Gateway?
hmm Well, it came to me like many people when you're suddenly in a crisis and your life has
Mm.
changed and you're saying, what the heck am I doing? So I had been laid off two different times. I was a director at Alina
Mm.
for clinical programs, neuroscience, and they got rid of the service line. Then I
Mm.
started consulting with critical access hospitals. I'm a nurse and I've had, quite a bit of leadership experience in healthcare, and COVID hit. So suddenly I
Oh,
was laid off twice in 3 years, and I found myself vaccinating with the COVID vaccine. So kind of
mhm,
nursing 101.
mhm.
And I was doing that, just reflecting, saying, where am I going from here? You get to a certain
Oh,
point too as you get older and
yeah,
you've been in leadership positions and you're saying, I don't think that's going to happen again for me. And yet I have all of this experience and
yeah,
skills. I think it's easy to spiral down, and
yeah,
I was determined not to. So
yeah.
a woman came and was getting vaccinated and actually
Mhm,
did equine assisted services with children. And it was not on my radar at all to do
mm,
this. And I started listening to her. She's a faith based woman and
uh-huh,
talked about the work. And I thought, I mean, it was within a half hour that I'm like, I totally am going to figure out how to do this with veterans. And I had been a director at the Minneapolis VA
mhm,
for a couple of years, but for the most part, I had been pretty disconnected from the veteran community. I was a Gulf War veteran,
mm,
Army nurse in the Gulf War, and I just was hearing more and more about the suicide rates and all these things that
mm,
were happening, and it was just tugging at me. And I
mhm.
think, like many people who have been in the military, I was also restless all the time. It's like no matter
Mm.
what job I did, I always felt like, yeah, but does this matter? Does it, especially as I got into leadership
Yeah.
and away from frontline nursing. Um, so I just started learning as much as I could about equine assisted services. And
Oh,
there's many different types of services. I volunteered. Some are riding, where you work on more the physical. I spend time at Acres for Life, which I'm going to call out because I have a lot of respect for them, and they are mental health specialists who partner with the horses, and it's all on the ground.
where are
And
they at, Kathy? Acres
they
for Life.
are in Forest Lake, Minnesota.
Okay.
So I am
Okay.
more than happy to promote them too. They've
Uh-huh.
been out there for 29 years or something like that now, and learned a lot from them. And it really helped me kind of focus in that, I'm not a riding expert. I'm not a horse expert. Unlike many of the
Mhm.
people that start this work, they kind of have horses, they have a ranch, and they're thinking, what am I going to do with all these horses? And then, this idea to do
Uh-huh.
therapeutic services comes. For me, it was the opposite, that I have had a passion. I've been a nurse for many years.
Uh-huh.
and I want to help people. And but I also had a blessing of land that I'm always thinking, man, horses would be
Mhm.
wonderful here, but can't afford it. What a silly waste, self-indulgent.
Mhm.
So it all came together that I was going to figure it out. I also, having been in quality, director of quality and things like that,
Oh.
I wanted to make sure that we developed something that had value, that we held ourselves
Mhm.
accountable for that.
Mhm.
Equine-assisted services are hugely variable. There's certifications for them, and some
Mhm.
people get into that more than others. I wanted to be able to prove that you should come to ours. So right from the beginning,
Uh-huh.
there's that background. Spent a bunch of time figuring out how will we evaluate it, and
Oh.
and then it's a nonprofit. So how will we get money? I think there's
Right.
grants, there's different things like that, and so
Mhm.
I spent 2 years before bringing anybody in to just make sure that I was comfortable with that.
Sure.
Did
I think.
retirement and just spent
Uh-huh.
a bunch of money getting the land ready and stuff to pull out. That
Oh,
was a huge faith-based thing to have to invest in it pretty heavily and
I'll bet.
to be
Yeah, probably a lot of stuff you didn't think that you needed to do yet found out you needed to do. And
right.
so, one of the Be the One program in the American Legion has they usually they let me rephrase all this. Waco Hoover, I think, is the director or the chair for the Be the One program for the National American Legion. And he had individuals this past in 2024 at the Washington conference, he had equine therapy as one of the services that they're looking into, as how do horses benefit human beings,
Hmm.
and what is the gift that horses bring to the healing process, to the listening process, to the relationship process.
Hmm.
And so it was nice to see that. And I'm thinking that Gateway Meadows is probably a lot like that too.
Yeah, I should tell you that too. Why horses? Why are we working with them? Why did
Yeah.
I think it would help? And I just know that I had a horse just for 1 year,
Uh huh.
and it was boarded. But as soon as I went to the barn, I just had this peace just being around them.
Um,
And it's hard to explain why that is. But
mm,
as I researched and kind of learned more about it and why should we do it, I just learned much more that, they're prey animals. So they're
uh huh.
always, you need to prove yourself to them, first of all. So they're just alert. They're in
Mm,
tune to you. They're paying attention. If you're angry, if you're happy, if you're coming to them, you're bringing them food,
uh-huh.
it's all about them trying to figure out how to read you and connect with you. And when you figure out how to connect with them, that
Mhm.
relationship is just incredible. And it's unlike the dogs that are kind of our unconditional run up to you, and no
Right.
matter what we do to them in some ways, the horses, you've got to be present. You've got to be paying attention to them, and partially you'll get your foot stepped on, which hurts quite a bit. So
Oh.
there's something about it. It makes you clear your head of all the crap. So
Oh.
they help quite a bit with PTSD and anxiety and all that for that reason too. Um, this is a little bit of me having worked with neuroscience, being
Uh-huh.
with brilliant neurosurgeons and neurologists, not being one of them, but they've
Uh-huh.
learned so much about the brain with the new brain scans and things. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of evidence of people with PTSD that they just keep going down the same brain pathways, basically, and not using the
Right.
rest of their brain. So part of it is the horses help open up some of those other paths. They close down the continuous repetitive stuff going on in your head. You're kind of forced to get that out if you're with them. And then it starts opening up new opportunities, making you, open to other thoughts. And we do groups
Okay.
mostly. So they're going through that together. And then the horses will trigger things. somebody will say, man, that horse is acting just like my mom or something, and or whatever it is. And
Uh-huh.
or this brings me back to my childhood when, and they'll start telling a story, and people pick up on it. And one of
Okay.
the big things that we do is focus on story for healing.
Mm,
And telling your story in and of itself is a way to heal. And as
mhm.
you speak, you start filling in the blanks and you start
Yeah.
thinking, wow, is that what I think? Is that what I feel?
Hmm.
So, in a lot of ways, the horses are an additional tool. They're our partners, but they're, one part of what we do here. Just being in nature is incredibly healing. And so we
Okay.
develop our environment to be as healing as possible.
So who comes out to Gateway? Is it like do you stay there? Do you visit for the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our program is the main one that we push is 6 sessions. They come for 2.5 hours, and it's a
Mhm.
group. I've been putting people together in groups. I'm
Okay.
starting to get, like right now, I'm talking to the Minneapolis VA about them bringing a group so they would already know the people. And then we can work around what does that look like for them? How long can their group stay, and how many times would they want to
Oh.
come? So very
Mhm.
flexible. I'm about just making it work. But our normal program that we've been evaluating
Mhm.
is 6 sessions for 2.5 hours, and it's people who didn't know each other that come together, and they basically need to commit to that time. And it's a
Okay.
progression with the horses. So the first time is very much about observing and learning about safety with the horses and things like that,
Mm.
getting them comfortable.
Mm.
And before we enter the horses, the arena or their home, it allows them to respect them and start kind of seeing the herd dynamics, the differences.
Mm.
You know, one is in charge, and
Oh.
if we will put the people in with the herd, so we want them to understand the dynamics of the herd too. So
Oh.
if the leader starts moving, you might want to pay attention that the other horse next to you is going to move, things like that. So
Oh.
it's kind of a fun way to learn, but while they're learning about the horses, they're also relating a lot of that to human interactions and relationships, and just wonderful discussions end up happening. So there's always horse time, and then there's conversation time. There's
Okay.
purposeful activities to lead the group kind of deeper and deeper into a relationship with themselves as well as with each other as they heal.
Usually when I think about horses and humans, I think about saddling up and you have to be in charge of the horse because the horse can sense your fear, or learning to work with the horse, but you always have the upper hand a little bit. But it sounds like you're learning and studying and observing and being a part of,
Mm-hmm.
and you're benefiting from that parallel relationship that you have with the horse.
Right, exactly.
That's
I like the way
accurate.
you said that. Yeah, the riding. So we don't ride at all, and it's a whole different
Uh-huh.
experience. And a lot of the riding programs are more about the physical movement. So if you've had traumatic brain
Okay.
injury or different things, occupational therapists, physical therapists can be helping, and it's a wonderful therapeutic service. But this is quite different in that you are figuring out how to connect, and like towards the end of the sessions, we put them in
Mhm.
the round pen. And I should say it's all about choice. So
Okay.
we're going to push people a little out of their
Mhm.
comfort level, but they always get to choose. Just like the horses, sometimes the horse chooses not to do what we want, and we don't have a halter on them and say, "No, you're coming. You're doing this." Um, when we put them in the round pen, they're not
Mhm.
connected. There's no lead rope, and they're trying to figure out how to partner with the horse and get them to turn, walk in a
Oh.
circle, whatever it might be. We'll have different little games that we do with them and stuff too. And just by the end, when they have figured out, how
Uh-huh.
do I communicate with this horse, and how do I get them to do it? And for the most part, the horses, especially the ones we have, they want to be with people, or we wouldn't choose
Oh,
them. They're
okay.
purposely chosen as therapeutic horses. But ours are also, two of them are rescue horses. One of them could no longer be ridden. And it's just quite a few things like that. So
Hmm.
there have varying levels of training. So when we come in, the people don't have training either, and we're not about teaching horsemanship,
Okay.
and we don't
It's
have
all about
time
the
for that.
relationship.
It's about the relationship. So we're not sticklers about particular techniques or things like that. It's really how can you personally
Hmm.
figure it out? And we guide them. A lot of times we're waiting for them to ask for help, which is also difficult for people. A lot of times they
Yeah.
just think that they should be able to do it or whatever. And we're, patiently there to support and keep them safe. But the learning and the accomplishment of figuring this
Hmm.
stuff out is just huge for um, just their attitude about themselves and
Right.
just recognizing again, man, I can do things, and
Yeah.
it translates to so many other things in their life to just feel like, all right, I need to get going.
Yeah.
I can instead of I can't, or I'm,
Yeah.
not enough.
I'm you're explaining this and I'm comparing it to, so often when there's a therapeutic encounter, there's a quest you have to conquer. You have to overcome, you have to change. And
Hmm.
so there's this active part of I'm going to fix something that's broken. Or I
Hmm.
need, like, if you're learning how to, do push-ups and things of that nature, you got to push yourself. And what I'm hearing you talk about is more of like of a yoga or the meditation piece where you have to submit yourself to learn more about who you are and work with
Hmm.
and ease into, but be challenged to think that you're fluid
Hmm.
as a human being and you can change your processes by submitting.
Hmm.
Because I think horses just know, they can sense all those emotions you talk about because they're prey animals.
Hmm. Yeah, they're
Is that
depending
right?
on that, on trying to figure out, are you here to help me or hurt me? Basically, it's all
Okay.
about that environment. And also, they're always looking for the leaders. So if we, as the human, aren't leading them, then they'll decide they need to lead. And sometimes that's not such a good thing. So we want them to
Oh,
trust us and also to see them as our leader. And if they do, then they will
okay.
follow and, willingly. They want that leadership. They seek that. It's security
For them.
for them. Yeah,
Okay.
they want to know. So, and I guess I didn't say too, as a nurse, so I'm
Uh-huh.
certified by the American Holistic Nurses Association as a nurse coach. And what I do, so it's holistic health. So
Uh-huh.
people can come, there's a lot of mental health, but um, the, cancer, stage 4 cancer, just in my recent group, somebody's battling with that. And
Hmm.
we come with our whole selves as we try to move forward in life, right? So I'm not a therapist.
Hmm.
So there are some organizations that are focused on the mental health and do therapy type things.
Hmm.
um, I what I do is coach, so it's very goal focused.
Okay.
And I partner, like the Anoka Vet Center is one of our main referral sources, and
Okay.
they're all working with mental health specialists then, and it's wonderful because we kind of, I know that they've got that piece and we're building
Uh-huh.
off that. Not
Okay.
everybody's in therapy, not everybody needs to be, but so we talk through what goals are you working on, what actions and commitments to yourself, are you willing
Okay.
to make? And the team, the group, we speak about it together. So we have shared goals.
Uh-huh.
We talk about our story too, and kind of where are you right now in your story and where do you want to
Hmm.
be? And
Hmm.
how do you, Arenas for Change is a organization that I'm certified in, and they're a lot about story. And they talk about the messy middle arch. Arenas for Change, they're going through the arch. So, you're here now, where do you want
Hmm.
to be? And then what are we going to do in this messy middle to get through and come out changed? So sometimes it's a little easier to speak in terms of story and get a little distance from your own life.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
horses help with that too. They can become characters if people want them to be, as they talk through
Oh,
their story. And sometimes that helps. When we first have them meeting the horses, we'll often say, all right, write down the characteristics you're seeing, and then which one would remind you the most of you if you're, and that
mhm.
drives a lot of conversations. And it's a nice icebreaker instead of just sitting in a room and saying, okay, tell us about yourself. Why are you here? And what, you know,
Right.
um,
Yeah. Which is a different approach to building safety and trust. But because it sounds like the foundation for Gateway is that safety piece and building that trust.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. and
Um,
and at their own pace. So we do
okay.
mindfulness types of things. Like the first, they do a five senses exercise and they go off on their own. Before we're saying let's all sit together as a group. People come in and I don't see necessarily a ton of smiles. They're kind of like, I,
Oh,
I want to try this. I've heard maybe I
uh-huh.
should, but I wonder what I got into. I don't know any of these other people. And especially when we're working with people who do have anxiety, depression.
Mhm.
We're trying to help people not commit suicide ultimately too. I mean,
Right.
for those, so some of those people, it's so hard to even get out of their house. So I
Mhm.
just take so seriously, man, if you showed up, it's the hardest thing. You made it today. How are we going to
Yeah.
make this day feel right for you and make you comfortable?
Yeah.
So it's very much about reading, allowing them to be
Okay.
themselves and share when they're ready. They're always encouraged to share,
Uh-huh.
but to what level they want to share or whatever. I usually don't let people not say anything, but what level are they comfortable sharing? And as time goes
Yeah.
on and people start sharing more and more, they all have that comfort and really help each other heal then. And it's just an incredible thing to be able to witness. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
facilitator, but I get to witness it more than manage it.
Mhm.
And that's a God thing, by the way. I the equine specialist that started this with me, we're both like after the first group, we're saying, I have no idea what happened. This is just way
Uh-huh.
beyond what we could have thought. And if we
Oh,
thought we were the ones that were orchestrating and figuring all of this out,
sure.
we'd be in trouble. But the
Yeah.
reality is that there's something that happens in this environment when you allow it, and when you trust.
Yeah, the trust of and then not being in control necessarily of how it comes together is what we've always considered like those God moments. Somebody calls them God winks. Um,
Yep, exactly.
yeah, serendipity. Like, how do you put all this together? Because there'd be so many different elements that if you're in control, they'd never be able to be put together, right? But if you allow yourself, then somehow it gets put together, and you're like, what in the world just happened?
Right. And I think,
Yeah.
coaches, therapists, if any of us think that we have all the answers and they just need to ask us and we'll tell them what they should do
Hmm.
with their lives, it's ridiculous. We're all human beings that are independent. We have different
Hmm.
values. And to be a good nurse coach, I'm trying to help them get clear in their own heads about what they want, what's important to
Oh.
you, how let's talk through options then, what would work. And so the medical model in healthcare that I spent so
Hmm.
many years is based on diagnoses,
Hmm.
research, treatments, money to treat those diagnoses.
Yep.
And it is incredibly freeing to just say, I don't care if you're 300 pounds overweight and you're a diabetic and you're, whatever. If you don't want to
Hmm.
come here and talk about losing weight or exercise or whatever, if that's what the doctor says, but what matters to you, in your
Hmm.
life? And that's what they get to focus on, not what I, as a nurse, think might be the biggest thing in their life. to focus on
Mhm.
or whatever. And so
Yep.
I'll ask diagnoses and I say, if you think it matters when you're here, basically, I would love to know. And if you're working with other doctors, mental health or physical, I would like to know just for their safety and all of that too. But I'm not treating people. I'm not working with a doctor and doing treatments as a nurse. I'm a nurse
Mhm.
coach, certified coach. So it's just about, what do you
You're
want?
working with where they want to,
Yeah.
where they feel is where they want to start out at
Yeah.
versus somebody dictating. One of the words that used to bother me the most in the medical world is non-compliant.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I told you what to do and how to do
Yeah.
it because I'm
Yeah.
the professional
Yeah.
and you're not doing it, so therefore you're non-compliant.
Yes.
You haven't evidenced change.
And you're going to get discharged from our services because you're not
Yes,
doing what we think. And
told you to.
that's partly the financial model too. We have to show
Hmm.
that we're making changes and things like that.
Yeah,
I mean, a parallel here would be if people, aren't willing to commit to showing up or something,
right.
know, things like that. But for the most
Yep.
part, if they show up, they're committed, and I'm going to take them
Hmm.
where they're at, and
Hmm.
you know, let them guide us. A lot
Right.
of times, so I have activities that we'll do with the horses, with groups and different things like that. But sometimes just being with the horses is more important, just letting them have their
Mm.
time and just be out there and let their brains
Right.
go and have that the pressure off. And they can have their aha moments by themselves with the horses as much as anything.
Right. Yeah. You're a nonprofit,
Yes.
and so the money is always an issue. How long has Gateway been in existence?
2 years now. And
2 years.
yes. And so,
Okay. And
and
so the fundraising piece, are there like events that you have? You accept donations. I also, you told me that you belong to Anoka American Legion Post.
yes,
And okay.
and they're wonderful. They've donated, which I really appreciate. The American
Hmm.
Legions in Coon Rapids, some of and the Coon Rapids VFW, I'm also a member of, and there have
Okay.
been different people like that have helped, which is huge.
Hmm.
Individuals a lot of times will help. We're
Yeah.
doing the Minnesota Give to the Max right now, which happens
Okay.
through November 1st through the 21st of this year.
Okay.
And we'll do that each year. So people are,
So in this podcast, what we'll do is in the description, we'll have the link to how to get connected to you. And if anyone wants to donate, they'll be more than able to find it on your website. I have looked at your website and it's very easy to navigate, very informative.
great.
And so everything is on there. And then Give to the Max is November 1st to the 21st.
Yeah, I think the final day is the 21st. And yeah, so we're gatewaymeadows.org. People can find us and learn
Uh
about
huh.
us. We are veteran focused first. We're starting to do
Mm-hmm.
some other activities like for first responders too, trying to give,
Oh,
and it's free for any of them that come, which makes it accountable for us
okay.
to try to find the money. But
Right.
I've been committed to that so finding grants and different things like that's important, but we have
Mhm.
not charged any individuals for coming out for services here.
So
So
the 6 hour program is there's no charge to the
no
veteran, is what
charge
I
to the
just,
veterans.
oh
Yeah,
my,
no. So it's a big commitment, like I said,
that
and
is.
yeah, so we're always trying to figure it out, but that's been a big faith part of it too. We're we're finding more and more
Mhm.
people as it develops and people give the
Mhm.
testimonials and things like that. I just have peace that it'll come. I would say though too that
Mhm.
one of the things that we're doing is organizational days. So organizations can come and do team building or things like that. And
Oh,
there's a charge for that. And that's a way that
okay.
we can be funded. So we would love to have veteran organizations, other organizations supporting that actually have money to come and do some
Right.
team building for the day too. And know that then
Mhm.
that does support the free services that we give to the individuals or anybody, their organizations that they work with. We are starting to do frontline healthcare too. So in this coming
Okay.
spring, we'll have a program for nurses and other health professionals. The nurses can get CEUs, so they will need to pay for that, but they can get CEUs. So that'll help us and them. So trying to get more creative on the
Uh-huh.
programs where we'll actually bring in some funding too.
It sounds like a really diverse nonprofit that you have got going on, but all geared towards that healing that can naturally occur in the environment
Yeah.
outside with nature with horses.
Our slogan is serving those who serve. So we really
Okay.
are focused on people. So the healthcare industry is kind of in that same area, the
Yeah.
first responders, trying to stay
Yeah.
focused on that. And it's, the types of programs are more similar than too. So we're
Yeah.
not doing a ton of variety. But it's the same thing with organizations. They're all
Mhm.
serving somebody, but the team building organizational development was part of my past life too. So it's just a
Okay.
world I'm very comfortable in to do
Hmm.
the day long events. So I would love to have more groups coming out for that too if they hear about this.
If they hear about it, yeah, that would be wonderful and see how it develops. I'm just, I find it so interesting that it just out of the blue, it doesn't sound like you were thinking about doing something equine. It just presented
Right.
itself, just listening to and developed, and it was a good fit for you. And I just, don't you get the sense that more and more people really want their purpose of why they're here to be more validated, that sense of value, like who am I in this world? And you know that horses can assist us in
Hmm.
bringing that out into the open and validating it, that value that I matter. Because you said that they have to, the humans have to provide that leadership, or the horse will end up leading.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
symbiosis.
Yeah, I like that. We talk a lot about purpose, and for me, it's become so
Uh-huh.
much easier to talk about that because I've never felt so fulfilled. I've never been,
Oh.
financially as concerned, probably if I let myself think about it, and yet I'm more fulfilled. So
Uh-huh.
money doesn't buy happiness. So,
Right.
but we do talk about that. And this last group, I was reading something that was from the University of Minnesota. I won't remember the group, but they talked
Uh-huh.
about purpose and defined it pretty broadly. It can be in your job,
Yep.
your family, whatever it might be. For me, this business has definitely become my purpose, but
Mhm.
ultimately it's about helping people. So yes,
Yeah.
ultimately it wasn't about horses. People have the focus on horses first, rescuing
Mhm.
horses and things like that. And it's wonderful.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I take horses who need a home, but first are good with therapeutic services and things like that. I'm not the one that's going to get them all ready to be
Uh-huh.
with people. But that's another part of the journey that's been so wonderful is that to me, it's been God just placing the things at the right time. I'll just get to
Mhm.
that point. It's like, okay, now start worrying, what am I going to do? And it's like, oh, it wasn't about me doing it. You had
Yeah.
an answer. Thank you.
Right.
And
Just go do it.
yeah, and the people, the
Yeah.
volunteers that have come, that we have wonderful horse specialists that are in the sessions. I've learned a ton, and of
Mhm.
course, I am the main caregiver for the horses now. They're on my property, so compared to 2 years ago, I know a ton about horses, but these
Yeah.
individuals are always there with me when I'm facilitating, and they're making sure their primary role is to keep people safe with the horses, and they
Mhm.
bring, just a different conversation too. If people
Mhm.
want to learn a ton about horses, they're there and they can talk through it.
Yeah. The acting out in faith and then trusting that all the provisions will be provided has something that, to a large degree, people that are walking in some faith are usually challenged with,
Mhm.
right? It's
Right,
like you have to trust that the finances are going to come, that the people will show up, that what is needed, you're just acting on what you know is something that is connecting and has purpose,
right. And I
right?
just,
And that's always hard.
I'm not being stupid either in that.
Right.
I mean, I'm, you know,
Hmm.
I'm not, I recognize that I've been blessed and that,
Yeah.
you know, I have property. It has a big mortgage, but I'm not going to suddenly lose it and be devastated.
Right.
So I feel blessed to have
Uh,
this property, and
mm.
I heal here. We've got ponds, swans often show up for people, and you know, just
Oh,
it's a beautiful property, and I'm saying that because I want people to be able to experience it, not to brag, but I mean,
yeah.
it's part of what I am blessed enough to be able to share. And every time people come and say that this is just so peaceful, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I mean, just never mind the horses, just being able to
Yeah.
give people peace by being here is
It
huge.
sounds like a stewarding principle is how you're motivated more than an ownership principle. Like I'm managing and stewarding what I have. Um,
As I'm growing more, I would say
mm,
yes. I think the older I get, the more I recognize the more we think that it's ours and it's about us,
right.
the worse off we're going to be. So as I'm maturing and recognizing, and you know, no longer having titles like director, now I'm just
Uh-huh.
a manure scooper, and the you know, it's like none of that stuff really mattered that much. And being
It
with
didn't. Was it challenging to let go of that? Because there's authority with all of that.
yeah, and all of it, and you know, I'm in the retirement years where people
Mhm.
that I care about are looking at retiring, and just watching the journey, that struggle that people have. I feel like, you know what, I've already gone through that. I'm not
Oh,
retiring. I'm going to work for maybe forever with this for the rest of my
uh-huh.
life. And that's the cool thing about it, is that, you know, I'm in something that isn't a job anymore. And I've gone through that transition of thinking that the title mattered. I mean, and
Mm.
I'm proud of myself that I got
Mhm.
this going. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and you know, I think it is a role model to my children, you know, to just
Mhm.
work hard for what you want and things like that. But I'm also proud that it's not about the money anymore. That's probably the biggest thing,
Right.
because the accomplishment is significant, what I'm going through. And I have a lot of goals, a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
So I have an MBA. There's things that I'm blessed to be able to have many
Mhm.
years of experience and be able to
Mhm.
apply them in this
Right.
job in so many different ways. So
All of you, it
yeah,
sounds like.
so
All your
yeah.
experience.
It's just that it's not about you know, the salary anymore as
Uh-huh.
how I would measure success. Put it that way. It can't be.
No. And you have a full board of directors
Yes.
too that
Yeah.
are behind
Yes.
you and
Yes. And they're wonderful. And you know, keep reminding me that we do need to make money too, even though when I say
okay.
what we're going to do is take care of veterans and we're going to give it all free, they're like, okay, it seems like there needs to be a little more than that, though,
Somehow,
because there's going to be expenses.
right.
Oh yeah, I know that. I'll figure that part out. But no,
The
so they're a wonderful
yeah,
team that trusts me, but also holds me accountable, as they should.
sure. And so we're going to have the link on it's hiddenmeadows.org.
Gateway Meadows,
Gateway Meadows.
Gateway
Thank you for
Meadows.
correcting.
Yep.
.org.
.org. Yep. .org.
Okay. And so we'll have that link in there, but it sounds like you're growing and you're establishing those connections to help veterans, first responders, and really help those that help others. It's serving those that serve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serving those who serve is our, and I would say even just, you know, kind of broader for me, I'm part of, it's a new partnership, veteran community partnership with the Minneapolis
Oh,
VA. That,
okay.
and I had been a director there a long time ago. But there, I am seeing them much more interested in reaching out to the community partners. And that's the only way
Yeah.
we're going to help the veterans, if we all figure out who each other is, you know, how do we refer, how do we share.
Mhm.
So I'm proud to be a co-chair representing the community with
Okay.
with this VCP, and I'm just throwing that out there, that our goal is to get everybody much more connected so that we can better serve and get the information out there so the veterans get the care they should, and no longer have it be the VA's there and we're all trying to get their attention. So
Okay.
hopefully we will do a better job of.
Is that a newer network then, Kathy?
Yes, and they're supposed to be doing the VCPs across the nation, from what I understand. But the Minneapolis one started
Okay.
at maybe 6 months ago, and there's
Oh, okay.
a chair representing the VA, and then there's 3 co-chairs representing the community from different organizations. And I have the background of working in the VA too, so I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in that world. But I'm throwing that out there, just that it's nice
Uh-huh.
to know in this area that I think that we're coming together more and more to figure out how to better serve, instead of nobody talking,
Yeah.
and you go into the healthcare system, and then if you're lucky you find some other resource like the vet center or whatever. And I do.
So it really is to consolidate what are those resources in your community? Is
Yes,
that the
to let
network?
people know about them. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're new, so there'll be some specific work that we do too. But one of the things that we're looking at is just getting a more compiled list. And there's different organizations, like the Vet Center has their
Uh-huh.
referral lists and things like that too. Um, but
Okay.
we'd like it to be online, that people can just access, not necessarily have to go to one of the one source or different organizations that have the lists. If it can
Uh-huh.
be more widely available, then that'd be great.
Well,
But
I wonder if that's something that could get linked in at the Minnesota American Legion websites or the district
yes,
websites, just kind of brainstorming while we're recording.
yep,
Like, how do we create it easier for people to locate?
right. We have a steering
Yeah.
committee meeting this week, and we're all
Okay.
still trying to figure out what's our mission and what are
Oh,
we
okay.
supposed to be doing. But yeah, I would think and hope that we have representation from the American Legion on our steering committee, but I'll see about that.
And so the adjutant, Mike Moxa, I'll just call him out. He's our adjutant in Minnesota American Legion. He would be probably a good contact.
Hmm.
Um, and when we get done recording, I'll give you his email. And then he would know the best person or the committee that would be a good liaison connection for you
Hmm.
as it grows.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
I You're welcome. I like to give guests the last word. And so this is your opportunity. Is there something that we did not talk about that you would like to cover?
I think probably the biggest thing is just it's so hard to get the word out when you're relatively
Mm,
new. So the more people would be
okay.
willing to share if they hear this. We're on Facebook too, Gateway
Okay.
Meadows on Facebook, and we put a lot of information out there to let people know what's going on. But yeah, that's our biggest ask, and funding. If it's in
Funding.
people's hearts to
Yeah.
fund us, it's in my heart to not charge.
And
So I want to be proven, that we can do this and prove it to the board.
yeah, trusting that the money's going to follow,
Yeah.
your horses are going to be taken care of, and you're going to
Yes.
be able to do good work for people that serve other people. It sounds
That's
like.
right.
So we're going to put the Facebook post down the description too.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I'd
Anything
appreciate
else?
it. Yeah. Thank you, Kelley. I appreciate the opportunity. It's very nice to be able to spread the word, and, you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah. Thanks
appreciate
for
what you're
being.
doing, that you're trying to get more information out through these podcasts. So,
You're welcome, Kathy. Thank you.
all right.